lots of bad stuff. But when somebody's beautiful, we don't really say that as much. When somebody's amazing, we don't really go tell them because we're embarrassed, right? There's a statement by a lady that's helped coach me in how to set up my business and that kind of stuff. And she wants you to go to somebody at a store or something. This is to get out of your comfort zone. She wants you to go to the store and go up to a cash register or up to somebody in the tomato aisle and say, hey, I'm amazing. Let me tell you why. And then just tell them. And they'll just be like, right? But you're telling, and of course you're uncomfortable, right? Because how many of us do that? And then, if they don't run away, then you say to them, why are you amazing? And all of a sudden they're like, oh, this person's creating something good in both of us. And both of you will walk away smiling. I've done it. It's unnerving and so true. And so true. We get to learn how to tell ourselves and other people how amazing we are. And if we get to start with other people, then that's where we start. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit. We were talking about opposites yesterday, right? We live in a world of opposites. Because of that, we live in a world of change. We live in a world of choice. We live in a world that doesn't always agree because there's opposites. Well, and Lynette brought up how there are certain things that are absolutes. She said, but there are some things that are bad, right? That's our vocabulary. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about that because we did discuss it yesterday, but not as much as I wanted to make sure we got this. Pain and pleasure, opposites, right? Just like everything else in the world. And we always go after the pleasure. It's very natural. It's even instinctual to go after the pleasure. If you're safe, if you're happy, if you're comfortable, that's good, right? That creates life. If you're in pain, that doesn't create life. That doesn't create safety. This is our basic understanding. But what we describe as is pain good, that's where we get to learn something. So, you know, if you're talking about our box, right? The box in which we live. We've got our addictions here, right? We've got our fears. We've got our core beliefs. And we've got our inner dialogue. That's good. I like that. So, actually, you know what? I should probably put pain on the other side. Pain would probably be better on this side and pleasure here. Why did I do that? Because if you break this down the middle, these are neutral things, and we think they give us pleasure. We talk to ourselves and we give ourselves stories, right? Because this is what we're trying to create more of. Our beliefs are trying to create more of this. Our addictions, we don't even want to talk about. We want to deny them, and they cause us pain. Our fears cause us pain, right? So we could separate it out that way. And then to what Lynette was saying, here are the things that we agree on that are, what do you want to call them, truths? Do you want to call them realities? You want to call them, depends on which application you're running, right? If you're running your spiritual application, your intellectual application, your emotional, good, right? Depends on which application you're running, what vocabulary you use, but they're all the same thing. So these are the things we agree on. These are the things we all agree are absolutes, are true. For instance, gravity. Is there anyone in here who disagrees that gravity exists? Right? We all agree on that. Is there anyone who disagrees that the sun comes up every morning? See, there's things we agree on. A few hundred years ago, we wouldn't have agreed on the fact that the world revolves around the sun. We used to think the sun revolved around the world, right? So there are absolutes, there are truths, there are things that are real, there are things that are good, whichever application, vocabulary you're using, that we all agree on. And then there's a whole bunch that we don't agree on. But they may be true, right? There's a lot of things people don't agree on. There's one. What's some others? Politics. Which one's good? Which one's bad? Which one's right? Which one's wrong? Which one's helpful? Which one's not helpful?
Healthcare. How to raise children.
Children. Oh, that's a good one. Could we go on and on? Is there any possibility that any of these are absolutes as well?
Yes.
Absolutely. In fact, most of them probably are absolutes. But the fact that we disagree on them makes them a choice that we make. And this is the way our opposite world was designed. This is the way our world of opposites exists. It's not a mistake. It's not a problem. It's just part of our world, which allows us, let me put this in a different shape. This is our box, whatever our reality is. Now, the world's reality is a certain box, and there's other things. The world's reality changes just like our box changes, right? And it's set up this way because if it was not, how could we possibly expand? How could we possibly make a choice? If all of these things were always true and always constant and everybody knew, what is there to do? There's no growth. There's no learning. There's no expansion. There's nothing to improve upon. And it's an innate quality within the human spirit, within the human life force, within the humanness that we have, that wants to expand, that wants to increase, that wants more pleasure. And how we describe that pleasure and how we understand it fits in here. The other thing that affects all of this is our understanding of pain. I've had 2 children. The first one I had without drugs on purpose. I know, I'm crazy. But I needed to connect with me. From yesterday, now you know why. I needed to connect with me. I had the first one on purpose with hypnosis. I taught myself hypnosis. And that's how I did it. I did a whole class of it. But do I remember that as a painful experience? I can tell you I don't. Yes, I remember there was some pain involved. But it wasn't a painful experience for me. It was a pleasurable, wonderful, amazing experience for me. My second child, I accidentally had without drugs. Because I already had that merit badge, didn't need it again. But my child came a month early, and I didn't even know I was in labor. I had pain, but it wasn't the same kind of pain as the first time, so I didn't understand that it was labor pain because it was too early. And so we were at the hospital, and I thought they were just going to, I don't know what they're going to do, fix something that wasn't working right. And then I thought I would be back home and everything would be fine. They'd take care of the pain. But instead, I had my baby. That was a painful experience for me, not because of the physical pain, but because my baby came early and I wasn't ready and he wasn't ready. And it was just really hard. But as time goes on, it gets more beautiful because he's okay now. And he's healthy now. And things are working out, and he's been catching up, right? So now I've switched my interpretation of it. So when we try to get away from pain, sometimes it's our interpretation that changes, not the event. Just like we were talking about my 15-year-old. The interpretation of it changes. It doesn't change the event. Like Anthony said, the world is neutral. The world isn't judging any of these things. The world just has all these things presented to us. And we're the ones who give it its meaning. Now, to talk a little bit more about that, imagine each of us is a big panel of plugs. Imagine on the front of me a big panel of plugs, right? Huge panel. You could imagine it like an electrical current switches, you know. Each one is a switch to flip. And just however many you can think of. The whole front of me is a big panel of these. This I got from a book called The Dark Side of Light Chasers. It spoke to me so completely. We are all that because at an essence of our beings, we are energy, right? We're made of molecules, which are made of atoms. Atoms are protons, neutrons, and electrons, and they're all spinning in their own little special frequency to make life happen. Science discovers and understands that even more, right? And they're all spinning in their frequencies, doing what they do. And then those are molecules, and then those molecules are separated into different kind of molecules that make up what our body is. So we are just a ball of energy, all kinds of energy, okay? So that energy is in these panels, all those pieces of energy. What Anthony did last night on his table was measure your energy in this snapshot period of time at this moment of time. Just like blood work, it just takes a picture of that moment, not of the forever in the past and forever in the future, just of that moment and where you're at that moment. So this electrical panel that we have inside of us, a lot of things we have plugged something into. We've plugged things into our dialogue, our fears, our beliefs. We've plugged something into a lot of these. So they are functioning or not functioning depending on what we've plugged into them, right? If we plug in a lamp that's working, we get light. If we plug in a lamp that's not working, it's still plugged in, we get nothing. It might short circuit us depending on what we plug into it, right? So these things are like this. As we go through life, we plug and unplug from different things. The only plugs that you don't have power over are the ones you don't have something plugged into. Everything else you have power over. Let me describe that. If I've got plugs in the wall and I don't have the socket on and I don't have covers on it and have small children, am I keeping them from that power? No, it's still open. They could go and plug into that power at any time and hurt themselves. If I have a cover over it, then I am taking care of that power. I'm being accountable or responsible for that power that I have charge of. Same with inside ourselves. We have all these different energies and all these different things that make up us. Like we're the house, the box, right? That make up us. And the ones that we have things plugged into, we have power over. Even if we have a broken lamp plugged into it that's short-circuiting that panel on that wall, we still have the power to unplug that and put something else in there. But the ones that are open are the ones that others can plug into. Because we haven't taken care of those yet. These are the things we're not paying attention to. These are the things that cause us pain, and so we ignore them. We try to go distance ourselves from them, pay no attention to them, rationalize as if they're not there. But we are who we are, and we have what we have. And if we can acknowledge without any kind of judgment of ourselves, remember the big S self and the little s self? It's only the big S self that will judge any of this stuff. The little s self just accepts that this is. Part of that book also states that every one of us is an amazing castle, an amazing mansion with so many rooms. It's you can't even just explore it all in one day. It's such an amazing castle. But over time, we close off rooms because they make us uncomfortable. They're hard to get to. They don't work. Our mother-in-law came over and didn't like that room, whatever. And so we close off pieces of it until we have a beautiful little cottage as an adult that we are. We're this beautiful little cottage. See, I have this cottage. Don't worry about this big, massive thing behind me that isn't me, even though it is. And then we don't take care of those other parts of us that are so amazing and so crazy cool because we just deny that they even exist. And that's this part that's doing that denying. This part doesn't. This part just accepts. Remember we were talking about my son? He just accepted himself, picking his nose in public or not. Just accepted himself. We all get to hold hands, right? And this person accepts the entire castle. The world changes that, and we create this to be safe. right? To get rid of the pains that we've experienced. But the definition of pain changes, and as it changes, we put in new sockets or don't put in new sockets. Eleanor Roosevelt said, the only, what people think of me is none of my business. When I tried to understand that the first time I heard it, I'm like, what? That didn't even, it's like the two sentences didn't even go together. The two phrases didn't even go together to me. But think about it, it so makes sense. If I'm plugging into this behavior that somebody does, if I'm plugging into this, let me use a different color. I'm plugging into somebody's panel, right? I really don't like, what's something I really don't like? I really don't like when my kids put glasses everywhere in the house. Makes me crazy. It makes me crazy. I'm picking up constantly, I'm picking up glasses everywhere, right? I really hate drivers that cut you off, right? Oh, I hate that. I hate that. So I'm plugging in to somebody else's energy. Things that I hate, right? I'm allowing them to plug in to me, something I haven't dealt with, and I'm plugging into theirs. They're probably flipping me off or something, right? Because we've just plugged into each other's energy, but not healthily, in a painful way, and we want to ignore that. We want to get away from that. So we don't deal with it. We just, but instead, if we can figure out what it is that we don't like about people getting in front of us on the lane in the freeway, some people just get on, and if someone gets in front of them, whatever, no big deal, and they're late, whatever, no big deal. I'm not saying that's good or bad either. I'm saying that some things nerve us and other things don't. The things that unnerve us are the things we haven't plugged something into. So let's do a little exercise with that. Pull out a piece of paper, put 2 columns. And we're going to discover within ourselves what are some of the things that we have not plugged into. So on one side, put all the things that you would not want said about you if a newspaper article was being written about you. If you were somehow famous, popular, you did some heroic deed, you were on the news for some reason, you're on TV for some reason, what do you not want them saying about you? You would be horrified, you would be humiliated, you would be embarrassed, you would shrink if they said that about you. Where's your paper?
Big enough?
Sure, why not? Just write 3 or 4 things. You don't have to share anything that makes you uncomfortable, so don't be afraid to write. If you were on TV and you were being interviewed, if someone from Oprah or Good Morning America came to your home and they were interviewing you, what do you not want to share with them?
Isn't that different than what you said the first time?
What
The
you
first time you said what you don't want
said about you. I'm
But
adding. I'm
sharing.
adding.
Okay.
I'm adding to help you pull different things out. What would you not want to say to them about you? What would you not want them to share with them about you? They're interviewing you. There are things that you're never going to say about yourself. And you wouldn't want them to do any poking around and find this out about you. It would horrify you.
Those are polar opposites to me.
Really?
Yes, because what I don't want said about me isn't going to be true. But on the other side, you're saying what I wouldn't share with somebody, and if I'm not wanting to share it, it's something that's true that I don't want somebody to know. It's 2 polar opposites.
Ooh,
Thank
that's
you.
good. I
Thank
like
you.
that.
Because when you said the second one, I looked at my list and went, well, none of this stuff is true, so it's not like I'm hiding those things and wouldn't want to share them because
You know,
they're not true.
Yeah, that.
But they both apply apply to
But
the
they both
trigger
apply.
you're trying to talk about. She's going to tie it together.
Okay.
Yes,
So even though they are opposites, they belong on your paper.
yes.
Okay.
See, that's interesting that you guys, well, I'll wait. Okay, may I, Sheila, go with one of the things you were saying for just a moment? She brought up, she doesn't want people to say things that are untrue about her. Correct? And it looks like a few of the rest of you did that too. What does it matter if people say that things are untrue? See, the fact that you don't want people to say lies is your plug on that one, is your short circuit, is your trigger, is your...
Except that the way you worded the question was you instructed us
Yeah,
to write
it's-
down things that we wouldn't want other people
Yep.
to say.
Yes, yes.
It wasn't, because I've always taught my kids in school, they'd come home and they'd say, well, so-and-so said this and so-and-so said that. And I said, is it true? And if it isn't true, you don't need to worry about it. So I don't necessarily worry about people saying untrue things, but you asked me to make a list of things I didn't want people to say about me.
But that's, see, look at where she's going. This is what's important to her. What did she teach her children? What truth is. And she wants truth in her life, right? That's where she went with that. People go into all sorts of places with this exercise. Truth is her box, her absolute. Might not be someone else's. Someone else might be more than happy to have lies said about them because what's true about them, in their opinion, isn't something they want to share. So you see how she's got something that's very important to her in her box, truth. Sharing it, being it, spreading it, teaching it, that's a very big thing to her. It might be to a lot of you. It is to quite a few people. It is to quite a few people. What's something else that some of you are willing to share that you put down?
You know, I just made a list of things that are probably true about me sometimes. That,
Okay.
you know, and I was thinking about, you know, what my legacy would be, or like you said, a newspaper article or an obituary or whatever.
Right.
However you want to look at that. And I would never want anybody to remember these things about me. Because sometimes I put down rude, lazy, uncaring, stupid, you know, just kind of probably sometimes, at times I probably am rude. Sometimes I probably am uncaring. But that's not what I want people to remember about me.
So, she doesn't want people to remember her weaknesses. That's super important to her. Don't remember my weaknesses. So her people seeing her strengths is important to her personality, to her box. People seeing her strengths is super important to her. Doesn't mean truth's not important to her. It's just something that came up right now. Let's have another share. So, I want you all to, I'm going to write her name down. I want you to all tell me the first thing you think of when I do this. What's the first thing you thought?
She must be really happy.
Right? So she got her name long before it meant anything else. It's not even spelled the same way. One letter makes all the difference in a whole bunch of words. But it's pronounced the same way, and when people hear it, they don't know one way or the other. It's not Gayle, it's Kay. Right? It's just Kay. And that's okay. But is this important to her? Does she want to be known for who she is and what she is? Does it mean that the other meaning of the word is good or bad? It has no relevance on the other meaning. She, in her box, wants to be known for who she is. Known. That's important to her. To be truly known. That's what she wants. That's important to her. And see, it comes out through her name. Like it comes out through, with you, through teaching or through making more of the world truth. With her, it's how history goes down, right? Let's try one more. Okay?
I don't know. I like get so nervous about this, but so people think, most people are like, oh, you can earn a fly, blah blah. But I have a horrible temper, and I swear when I get really mad, I would hate for that to be announced.
You don't want people to know that you have a temper. So let me ask you one more question about that. Is it the fact that you have the temper? Or is it the fact that people know you have a temper? Or is it what happens when you have the temper? What is it about the temper?
Well, I guess the more, like even my parents were like, you should get your anger issues checked out. That's what they told me to go.
So with hers,
After my divorce.
Oh, that'll do it.
here we go.
And I was married to an addict, so.
Here we go. On hers, it sounds like it's acceptance. Acceptance in what she is and as what she is. It's something that she acknowledges, maybe not proud of, maybe could change in some ways, but it is. And she wants to be accepted for it. Because notice she brought up her husband who is an addict, so obviously he has issues, right? But she didn't bring up as if it's his issue, she brought up her issue. She wasn't, maybe she was, but she didn't say she was embarrassed to be married to an addict or that she had been married to an addict or that her parents were paying attention to that instead of him, to her anger issues, because maybe it was her issues that created the addictness, right? Whatever it is that's going on inside her, hers sounds a lot more like acceptance. Acceptance is important to her. Acceptance
So acceptance, like to
of who you
allow
are.
to be angry?
Yeah.
Or-
Of who you are. Because if you are that, if that is part of who and what you are, you want people to go, it's okay, I still love you. I still accept you. You still get to be in my life because you're still special to me. Does that sound somewhere in the, right? And that's right there is what we want to do in the world, is create that goodness, create that understanding of who we are and what we are. And as we gain more acceptance of ourselves, like that little thing where we go up to someone in the tomato aisle or at the cash register and say, let me tell you how amazing you are. You don't know this person. You see how they're dressed. You see how they did their hair. You see how they're reacting with customers. You don't know them. But you're seeing something in them, and maybe you're more intuitive than others. But when I can see her and know that about her and go, it's okay. You're who you are, and I accept you. See, then that gives her permission to be more of herself and to work on her anger if she doesn't like where it is, because that anger is what makes her strong, too. That anger is what makes her solid. That anger is what makes her fight for herself, right? But we don't look at those parts of the things we worry about. We look at the pain, the fear, the weakness, the addiction. We don't think of that. And I'm saying, let's be neutral. We're going to talk a lot more about that this afternoon. There's going to be some people that help us talk about that. And help us learn how to do some more of these types of healing mechanisms. Let's learn how to accept ourselves as we are. Let's learn how to reinterpret and expand our boxes. Let's learn how to do this with ourselves, because as you do it with yourself, you will do it with someone else. You can do it all the work inside, and nobody will ever know you did the work until you stand up and start talking, right? This is where my little thing, oh, I don't like this one. It's not good enough for me.